In this tutorial, we'll be modifying an existing macro-enabled template. We will be adding clauses to an existing template and removing a clause that's no longer needed. I'll begin by selecting the UO contract macro-enabled template and opening it in Word. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'll use the lease contract template as I've made a change to a clause inside this template in a previous tutorial. I'll start by opening the lease contract. With the contract now created, we can scroll down and see the changes that we've made in the previous tutorial. Let's assume that we'd like to insert our new clause above the Article 1 Agreement to Lease clause inside the lease template. To accomplish this, we'll have to modify the lease template macro. To begin the modification of the macro, click the Microsoft Word Developer tab. If you don't see the Developer tab, we can find it by clicking the Office button, Word Options, and making sure that the Show Developer tab in the ribbon is checked. From the Developer tab, click the View Macro button. This opens the Macros window. Select the current macro, in this case, the lease macro. Clicking Edit will open up the Microsoft Visual Basic Editor. To insert the new clause, I'll have to modify the code of the macro. First, I'll make a copy of the code snippet that inserts the Lease Article 1 quick part. Then, I'll insert that code snippet just below. You can see that we have duplicate inserts. Then, in the first insert, I'll change the name from Lease Article 1 to the name of the new clause. In this case, Meaningful Name. I'll save this, and then I'll close the editor. In order to see our changes to the lease macro, I'll first remove all the text from the document by selecting Ctrl-A and Delete. I then go back to the Legal Contract System tab and select a different macro. This will populate the document. We'll have to clear this as well. I'll select Ctrl-A and Delete. Now I can go back up to Contract Type, select our lease macro, and scroll down to our Article 1. And we see that our new clause has been inserted above the Article 1 Agreement to Lease clause. Now that we've successfully updated our lease macro, we need to save it back to the template. To do this, we first have to select and remove all of the text in the document. I'll select Ctrl-A and Delete. This is necessary because if we save the document with the text in the document body, every time we open UO Contract Template, the lease text will show up in the body. Once the text has been removed, I can save the template. I'll click on the small save icon on the title bar to save the template back to the server. Let's assume now that the clause we've just added is no longer needed. We'll need to remove it now from the macro. Our first step will be to open the macro editor by clicking on the Developer tab and the View Macro button. With the macro window open, we'll select the macro we're going to edit. In this case, the lease macro. We'll select the Edit button and open the Microsoft Visual Basic Editor. With the editor open, we'll select the Insert Code snippet of the clause we wish to remove. I'll then select the Delete key, removing that code snippet. Then I'll save my changes and close the editor. Although the clause has been removed from the macro, it still exists in the clause library. We can choose to delete it from the clause library or save it for later use in another template. Let's assume that we wish to remove the clause from the clause library. We'll start by clicking the Clause Library button, opening the Building Blocks Organizer. I'll sort them by name and then scroll down to our quick part. Then I'll simply click the Delete key, confirm that I want to delete this building block, and the building block is gone. Now I'll save the changes back to the template by clicking the Save icon on the title bar. Once again, saving the template back to the server.